Genius singer Robert released a new album, and his single She Can Hear quickly became a hit everywhere, sweeping major awards. He wrote this song back in high school when he was my deskmate. When he sang the last line, he reached out and pulled off my hearing aid, so I couldn't hear it. Many years later, I finally heard the ending of the song's lyrics. I like you. Chapter 1. Robert's concert had just ended, and he was already trending with more than a dozen hot searches, maintaining his usual high popularity. Especially the song She Can Hear, which he sang as the finale tonight. It swept this year's music awards and awakened countless people's youthful memories of first love. I opened Robert's fan support group and quietly lurked inside. The messages in the group quickly piled up, with many boys and girls who had just watched Robert's concert expressing their excitement and admiration. It wasn't hard to imagine how breathtaking the live performance must have been. Someone suddenly mentioned me, asking, "Group owner, didn't you go to Robert's concert?" I've been a fan of Robert for a few years since his debut. I organized this group, and everyone knew how much I liked him. But I couldn't get a ticket to his concert. The scalper I had negotiated with also bailed at the last minute, so I couldn't go. Maybe it was fate. The group quickly moved on to other topics. I think Robert has a new girlfriend. There was a masked beauty sitting in the front row VIP seat. After the concert, staff took her backstage. I blinked. When I exited the group, I saw that the top hot search was a new topic, #Robert, first, love. It was a video. The masked beauty in the front row stood out in the crowd, with her eyes bright and clear. The seat next to her was empty, with her bag placed on it. She looked up at the star on stage, her eyes filled with light. Robert was playing the piano on stage, shining brightly. He looked up several times in her direction. The video was dizzying with lights, giving a sense of love amidst the crowd. An insider revealed that Robert's song was written for her. She was Robert's first love, whom he had been longing for. They look perfect together. What a love story in the entertainment circle. Am I the only one feeling sorry for the empty seat next to the beauty? Such a good seat. I closed my phone. Chapter 2. I don't follow the entertainment industry much, but I do follow one person. Robert. It's hard to describe this feeling. The more he shines, the further away he feels as I continue to chase him. I've decided to transfer the fan group responsibilities in the next few days. I need to move forward with my life. When I was writing my diary at night, I listened to Robert's latest hit, She Can Hear, once again. I had heard this melody back in high school. At that time, Robert chose me as his deskmate because I was the quietest in the class and wouldn't bother him like other girls. Actually, I was just quiet. Others would mock me as a little deaf girl or mute. But not Robert. I had a bit of a crush on him, but I hid it well. He didn't know. I remember everything about him clearly. One evening at the end of June in our second year of high school, Robert pulled me up from the ground, wiped the blood off my forehead, and sang this song to me, with the same melody and lyrics. The summer air flowed from him, and our shadows leaned together on the ground. When he sang the last line, he suddenly took off my hearing aid. My world went silent, and I only remembered his eyes. He leaned in and sang the last line in my ear. I like you. So that's what it was. Chapter 3. Netizens quickly discovered who the masked beauty at Robert's concert was. She was Grace, a singer who came from a talent show, known for being a wealthy girl chasing her dream in the entertainment industry, pursuing a music career. In her interviews, she openly said, "I entered the entertainment industry for someone. He's a musical genius." Now the answer is clear, it was for Robert. Her Weibo quickly became flooded with well wishes from netizens. I didn't feel much jealousy, just a bit melancholy. So, Robert liked this kind of girl. I transferred all the fan group responsibilities to a fellow fan and arranged to meet her at a cafe. The background music in the cafe was still Robert's She Can Hear. The girl at the next table excitedly told her friend, "Have you seen the latest interview with Grace and Robert? I'm obsessed." My fellow fan, Little Bunny, arrived late. Her online name was Little Bunny. Little Bunny was stunned to see me. I smiled and jokingly said, "Just because I wear a hearing aid doesn't mean I can't like music." She quickly waved her hand, and the atmosphere relaxed. Before transferring all the responsibilities, Little Bunny half-jokingly said, "You've been a fan of Robert for so many years, huh?" 7 years. She laughed. "Robert has only been famous for 4 years." I looked at my reflection in the glass door and smiled. 17 to 24 is 7 years. I didn't get it wrong. I've liked Robert for 7 years without realizing it. Do you regret it? Little Bunny asked me one last time. I said, "No regrets." Chapter 4. I logged on to QQ. Everyone uses WeChat now, so QQ isn't used much anymore. But when I was in high school, everyone used QQ. There were only a few people left on my friend list, and the only special contact was Robert. His profile picture was always grayed out. I added his QQ under the pretext of borrowing homework when we were deskmates, but it was probably hacked later, and it would never light up again. Even knowing this, I didn't dare disturb him much. I would just click on his chat whenever I thought of him and stare at it. This time, I did the same. I clicked on his chat window, wanting to say a proper goodbye. After writing and deleting a long message, I finally sent just a few words, "The song is great." Even with such a short message, my palms were sweating. Knowing he wouldn't receive it, my heart still pounded. His profile picture suddenly flickered twice. From gray to colorful. From offline to online. He was typing. Robert sent 2 words. "Thank you." Did you hear it? I was stunned. I never thought he would see it and reply. After the screen dimmed, I remembered to type and replied after thinking for a while. "I heard it. The whole world is filled with your music. Congratulations." The deskmate I could once reach out to touch had become a legendary figure in the music industry. I was genuinely happy for him and wished him a bright future. The chat window still showed he was typing. I waited and waited. Finally, I received 2 words. Robert said, "Good night." I think I really don't know how to chat. But I am somewhat relieved that at the end of my 7-year-long secret crush, I received a good night. Chapter 5. I packed away all the posters and albums of Robert. My mom helped me tidy up and said, "After so many years, it's time to let go." I softly replied with an. My mom is also a fan of Robert, but she knew him from high school. She always understood that I wasn't just following a star. I truly liked Robert himself, from the beginning to the end. She paused for a moment and then said, seemingly meaningfully, "That girl looks quite pretty." She was talking about Grace. In the morning, she was still watching gossip videos about Robert and Grace, secretly checking if I had cried. Grace's high school photos were already dug up. She went to our high school, a year below Robert, a junior. In all aspects, she fit the image of Robert's first love. All the clues matched. Netizens who loved digging into details were all saying they were smitten. I hadn't said anything for a long time, looking at the photo of Grace from her high school days that the entertainment reporters dug up. It was a photo from the stage of the art festival in our second year. Grace was the host announcing the performances, and sitting behind her at the piano was Robert. Brilliant and dazzling. Even I had to admit, they were a perfect match. Chapter 6. When the rumors about Robert and Grace came out, Greenfield High School struck gold. As their alma mater, Greenfield High School was celebrating its centennial anniversary, and using the fame of Robert as a notable alumnus, they quickly made it to the hot searches. The school had already sent invitations to former alumni. I was also going. I didn't have much to reminisce about at Greenfield High School. The only thing that kept me looking back and unable to move on was Robert. But I had to attend this anniversary, because Robert would be there too. I had to take this opportunity to see him and return what I owed him. My mom took a metal box from her bedside table, carefully taking out a passbook and handing it to me. Both my mom and I didn't earn much, and saving up this amount had been hard. The amount in the passbook was roughly equal to the cost of the hearing aid Robert had given me. I would return it to him during the anniversary, so it wouldn't take up much of his time. Holding the passbook, I felt a bit dazed. I was about to see Robert. Chapter 7. But I didn't expect that on the day of Greenfield High School's centennial celebration, I almost couldn't even get in. Media personnel with long cameras were waiting at the school gate, stopped by security guards, while police officers maintained order at the entrance. Every returning alumnus had to go through strict checks to prevent any paparazzi or crazy fans from getting in. I failed the check because I hadn't received my invitation yet. I took out a bunch of student IDs from my bag, almost ready to call my retired homeroom teacher to prove myself. When I was already hoarse, the security guard glanced dismissively at my hearing aid, then suddenly his eyes lit up. I thought he was going to let me in, but he pushed me aside and turned to welcome someone else. I almost fell, and the camera shutters around me started clicking incessantly. Anyone would think a star was walking the red carpet. But when I steadied myself and turned around, I realized it really was a star. Grace, surrounded by several bodyguards, her bright eyes covered by sunglasses. Her face had been all over the hot searches recently, and as soon as she appeared, the security guard recognized her. She didn't even need to show an invitation to get a clear path. I lowered my eyes and quietly waited for her group to pass. But Grace paused as she walked by me. I looked up, confused, and saw her gaze linger on my ear before moving to my eyes. She hesitated, then lifted her hand to remove her sunglasses, revealing her bright and aggressive eyes. Grace chuckled and said, "This is Greenfield High School, not some deaf-mute school. Are you sure you're not in the wrong place?" I widened my eyes in shock, my face burning. The security guard chuckled and patted his chest, assuring her, "Grace, don't worry. We'll make sure no riffraff gets in." I'd faced such prejudice more than once. But this time, it was particularly humiliating. It almost made me unable to stand, but I couldn't argue back. I could only lower my eyes. Then I saw a low-key black car stop behind Grace. The black window rolled down slowly, revealing a cold and noble face. I never thought my reunion with Robert would happen under such circumstances. At least it shouldn't happen when I was in such an awkward situation. I quickly lowered my head. But it was too late. "Ashley." Robert called my name, his voice soft. This was his first sentence. From a distance, the reporters and fans had already noticed him. Flashlights flickered in the daylight, like a celebration of a grand reunion. "Long time no see, desk mate." His words were clear. This was his second sentence. Chapter 8. Desk mate. When I later recalled my high school days, I rarely remembered the derogatory nicknames like Little Deaf Girl or Mute. I only remembered Robert waking up from naps, with a red mark on his face, hoarsely asking me, "Desk mate, what time is it?" Robert was very popular, but he was as taciturn as a mute, yet he didn't seem aloof. Just leaning back in his chair and lightly spinning a pen, he could draw a crowd around him. I was different. I was quiet and isolated. The hearing aid I used then was the worst, not suited to my hearing needs, and I often found myself in a silent, dead world. At first, people were interested in talking to me, but over time they lost patience. Only Robert, probably bored from sitting with me for so long, patiently repeated things to me again and again. "Desk mate, homework is due." "Desk mate, help me with something." "Desk mate, can you hear me?" Desk mate. Chapter 9. My desk mate, Robert, was no longer within reach on my left side. He stood on the stage, tall and upright. When Robert, as an outstanding alumnus, gave a speech on stage, I sat in the audience, still a bit dazed, holding his coat. Actually, I should have reminded him that he couldn't bring another girl in front of the one he liked. Robert's glance at Grace just now scared even me. The security guard who stopped me turned pale the moment Robert called my name. Robert got out of the car himself, proved my alumni status, and brought me into the school. Grace was now sitting behind me. I truly experienced the phrase like sitting on pins and needles. I looked up quietly at Robert on the stage. He hadn't changed much, just shed some of his youthful arrogance. His single eyelid made him most charming when he played the guitar with his eyes downcast, with a mole hanging at the corner of his eye. He finished the last line of his speech. I clapped lightly along with everyone else. I really cherished such moments, not knowing if there would be another chance. Standing at the podium, Robert suddenly looked at me and smiled. During the student Q&A session, Robert answered a few students' questions, and the atmosphere was harmonious. The last girl, about 16 or 17, with a bouncing ponytail, stood up and asked with a smile, "Senior Robert, is it true that you had a first love goddess in high school?" The whole room held its breath. Robert's expression remained calm. "Yes, it's true." Everyone's gaze shifted to Grace. For some reason, her smile seemed a bit pale. The girl, riding the wave of excitement, pressed on with her questions, holding back her screams, "Is she here?" Robert remained silent for a moment, his ears turning red. His voice was soft but firm. He said, "Yes." The screams of these high school students nearly pierced the sky. I placed my hand over my heart. It felt a bit absurd. In that moment, my heart suddenly burned intensely. Chapter 10. The Q&A session had ended, but an unexpected guest stood up. He wasn't a student, nor did anyone hand him a microphone, but he had a loud voice. He shouted at Robert, who was about to step off the stage, "Big singer. Big star. Do you remember Owen, the guy you almost beat to a pulp in sophomore year? Why does a bully like you still get to live well?" The scene descended into chaos. Robert glanced at the man. Utter disdain. As if he were looking at a clown. Security quickly subdued the troublemaker, and the incident passed swiftly. I stood there, frozen, unable to move. It had been a long time since I'd heard Owen's name. It was a nightmare. Chapter 11. After the event, I still hadn't found an opportunity to be alone with Robert, as he was busy signing autographs. I felt like the jacket in my hand and the passbook in my bag were burning me. I should return them to him as soon as possible. I walked to the classroom I remembered, now abandoned. Through the glass window, I seemed to see a summer years ago, Robert doodling on sheet music in a notebook, a soda can on the corner of his desk. I was lost in thought when I turned around and saw Robert standing with his arms crossed, leaning against the wall, watching me for who knows how long. Instinctively, I apologized, "I'm sorry." He smiled slightly, taking his jacket from me. "Why are you apologizing?" The broadcast was playing his song "She Can Hear." I didn't know. I just always felt like apologizing to him. Maybe I was sorry for causing the disturbance at the school celebration. I pressed my lips together, took the passbook out of my bag, and handed it to him. "This is the money you lent me for medical expenses and a hearing aid. My mom and I have always been grateful. I'm returning it to you." He was stunned. I was worried Robert wouldn't accept it. But he was quick, his fingers brushing against mine. For some reason, he laughed again. He should be a person of few emotions. Robert smiled, "It's good that you never forgot me." He always focused on the strangest points. But I would never forget you. Chapter 12. Robert didn't want to leave through the main entrance, as there were reporters and fans. He wore a baseball cap, and I led him out through a small path. The sky had been overcast all day for the celebration, and now it darkened even more. Sure enough, it started raining midway. I pulled Robert into a flower shop not far from the school. The wind chime on the door rang as we entered. "My mom opened this shop a couple of years ago. They say selling flowers in this life leads to beauty in the next, but I just wished for normal hearing." There was no one in the shop. She must have gone out visiting. Robert had just finished a call with his manager and was wandering around the shop. While I made him a cup of tea, he stood with his back to me, examining something. I widened my eyes, nearly spilling the tea. My mom and I had recently packed away boxes of Robert's posters, albums, and signed photos, which were just sitting there. She must have planned to have them sent off today, and by chance, Robert had seen them. I froze, feeling a sudden sense of shame, as if my long-hidden secret had been exposed. Robert picked up an album box, his monolid eyes lowered. "This is my earliest album." I carefully watched his expression, smiling awkwardly like meeting an old classmate. It was indeed hard to get. "Everyone likes you." I had collected those items over a long time. "I've listened to every song, every album of yours." I like you," but I swallowed the rest of my words, looking down for a moment before smiling, my voice dry and helpless. "Robert, I'm your biggest fan." Many people loved the genius singer Robert. But I was different from them. I only liked Robert. Robert turned around, the small mole under his eye still there. He said softly, "But you've never been to my concert." The rain outside stopped. The wind chime rang. Chapter 13. After Robert left, my fan friend Little Bunny messaged me, updating me on the latest fan group gossip. The group had started to dislike Grace. Since gaining fame from Robert's popularity, she had quickly taken on several major endorsements, appearing too opportunistic. She also shared other group gossip. As I listened, I suddenly sent a message, "Little Bunny, actually, Robert and I were high school desk mates." He even asked me why I never attended any of his concerts. There was no response for a while before a string of laughing emojis came through. Probably thought it was a good joke. I also looked down and smiled. The idea of my name and Robert's being mentioned together was indeed surprising. I quietly suppressed that wild thought in my heart. Chapter 14. Someone at the celebration recorded Robert's Q&A and posted it online. The youthful student asked Robert, standing on the stage, "Is it true you have a goddess?" He answered, "Yes." "Is she here?" He paused for a moment, then said, "Yes." Robert had always been known for his cool demeanor, rarely showing strong emotions. Smiles and excitement were hard to see, let alone the rare sight of him with red ears in this video. The video also included a glimpse of Grace. Their popularity skyrocketed. Grace then posted a Weibo message. "Grace V, I heard it tilde." Directly referencing the title of Robert's song, the implication was strong. It was her first time publicly hinting at their relationship, confirming she was Robert's first love goddess. The couple's fans were ecstatic, almost losing their minds. However, Grace's recent actions, taking on scripts and endorsements, seemed too opportunistic to Robert's large fan base, but they begrudgingly accepted it for Robert's sake. This grand crush seemed destined for a fairy tale ending until a hastily produced personal interview with Robert after his concert was released. Except for work-related public appearances, he rarely accepted interviews like this. In the interview, the host half-jokingly asked, "Robert, fans want me to ask, was your goddess a senior or a junior?" Robert, looking down, shook his head, "Neither. She was a classmate." The host, well-trained, hid his surprise. The widely speculated Grace was indeed his junior. This statement almost officially debunked the rumors. At the end of the interview, the host asked, "The song she can hear will surely become the theme song of countless youths in the future. Robert, why did you choose this title?" This time, Robert was silent for a while. When he looked up again, he was staring at the camera, blinking lightly with a rare hint of confusion. Robert's gaze seemed to pierce through the screen. One afternoon, on the red plastic track, she slowly walked towards me. I wanted to know if, when she passed by, she could hear my rapid, uncontrollable heartbeat. Could she hear my overwhelming love that couldn't be concealed? Chapter 15. Robert didn't have a personal Weibo account, but his studio quickly reposted his personal interview. Robert Music Studio V, the boss says, those who shouldn't hear it did. Almost immediately after the interview was released, Grace deleted her Weibo post that said, "I heard it." From the end of the concert to this time, it had been the highlight of her career, driven by rumors and hype. The outrageous rumors about her and Robert couldn't have spread without her subtle manipulations and her team's guidance. Robert had always ignored such matters, focusing solely on his music creation. Over the years, many had tried to ride his coattails, but people only took it as a joke. This time, however, everyone could see that Robert was serious. Grace's reputation plummeted. Stealing someone else's affection was despicable everywhere. The endorsements she had signed were all cancelled, and she had to pay hefty penalties. She posted a forced explanation on Weibo, "Ha ha ha, just joking. Normal people can all hear sounds, right?" Chapter 16. After Grace's hype incident, Little Bunny had been on the phone with me all day, ranting. She repeated her words over and over in anger. Taking a sip of tea, Little Bunny continued, "I have insider information. Grace's family has some money, and the company is willing to back her. They've already bought a video to divert public attention." My eyelids twitched uncontrollably, and I felt uneasy. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, something happened. The explosive video was released at night, immediately trending on Weibo. The hashtag was #RobertSchoolBullying. Opening the video, the whistleblower held up his ID card, detailing how Robert had bullied him in school, showing a bunch of old injury reports and focusing on the scar on his nose, accusing Robert of nearly crippling him before going abroad to study. The name on his ID was Owen. In recent years, school bullying had become a sensitive topic, causing intense reactions from all sides. Moreover, the accused was Robert, who had always been regarded as a rising star in the music industry. Watching the video, I trembled all over. What Owen said was false, his statements were misleading. But the injury was indeed caused by Robert. Chapter 17. Owen and I had attended the same school for many years. In every new environment, everyone liked me. Although I was a bit different, I smiled sweetly and quietly observed people. But with Owen around, my days became increasingly difficult. In elementary school, he would grab my worn-out backpack, hit my head with small stones, and rally others to attack the deaf monster. In middle school, he sat behind me, unclasped my bra through my clothes, and called the boys to look. He chased after me, calling me little deaf girl. Later, he discovered I didn't cry out loud when I shed tears and started calling me little mute. Taking advantage of his family's wealth, he bullied me at school, leading the isolation against me. It only got better in high school because I met Robert. Luckily, I was quiet enough to become his deskmate. Owen's harassment lessened. In sophomore year, during the school art festival, I went to return Robert's student ID, which he had left in the classroom. He was the final performer. There was a path with dim streetlights and gravel between the teaching building and the gymnasium where the festival was held. That night, Owen stopped me with a few cronies, holding a camera. They probably thought it was romantic. He said he realized he liked me and wanted to be with me. I felt nauseous and, as usual, pretended not to hear, quickly passing him. But as I did, he shoved me to the ground, my head hitting the gravel. Warm liquid flowed down, and my ears buzzed. One hearing aid flew off. Owen stepped on it. It was the best hearing aid my mom could afford to ensure our survival. His cronies laughed, and one of them, who had followed Owen since elementary school, said, "Owen, you haven't unclasped her bra in years." This time was different. Owen didn't do it through my clothes. In the distance, the gymnasium lights were bright. The festival had been going on for a while. I struggled but felt like a fish out of water. Suddenly, a flashlight beam approached. Owen and his cronies scattered like rats. The person came to me, moonlight filtering through the trees. It was Robert. I reached out my hand, holding his student ID. His eyes were calm. Robert helped me fix my clothes, pulled me up, cleaned the blood from my forehead, and accompanied me home. I saw our shadows on the path, close but mine was trembling. I said, "The festival isn't over. I can go back myself, you still have a performance." Robert's voice was soft, "It's okay. That song wasn't for them anyway." With one hearing aid, all the sounds in my world came from him. But the hearing aid was faulty, often cutting out, making it hard to understand his meaning. But his singing came through, his voice slightly hoarse, the melody incredibly beautiful. Being with him, I had countless moments when I wanted to cry. In the still night, he suddenly took off my hearing aid and sang the last line in my ear. Years later, I learned that song was called She Can Hear. It ended with "I Like You." Chapter 18. After Robert took me home, he returned to school. His hands, skilled at playing the piano, were also ruthless when hitting people. Owen and his cronies never returned to school, and Robert was sent abroad by his family. They must have reached a private settlement. I didn't see Robert after that night. Before he left, he sent me something, a new hearing aid. It was comfortable and clear. There was also a memory card from a camera. My senior year at Greenfield High School was long and dull, free from Owen and his cronies' harassment. I had several new deskmates, but no one called me little deskmate anymore. It felt empty. On graduation day, I realized I had lost the most important part of my youth. Until one day, on the street, I heard Robert's album. I didn't lie to him, I was always his #1 fan. Listening to his songs, I often felt he was right beside me. Never leaving. Chapter 19. I never expected Owen's story to resurface, even if he twisted the truth. Even if he spewed lies and showed his ugly heart. There would still be many who believed him. After the school bullying incident broke out, Robert's reputation hit an all-time low. Little Bunny, a member of his fan club, was fuming, cursing Grace and her unscrupulous company. Robert had to suspend his recent performances, and multiple brands terminated their contracts. From the onset of the incident, he remained silent, not saying a word. He could clarify, at least explain the circumstances, but doing so would implicate me and cause me harm. Robert called me, and I heard his gentle breathing on the other end of the line. His voice was calm. "Ashley, I'll handle this. You don't need to worry." Tilting my head and holding the phone between my shoulder and ear, I rummaged through the attic until I found a small brown box containing an outdated hearing aid, Robert's student ID, and a tiny memory card from a camera, which Robert had retrieved from Owen's crony. I took a deep breath and clutched the memory card. Robert hadn't hung up the phone this whole time. I said softly, "I know, but I still want to help you." Robert deserves to stand tall in the music world, clear and untainted. I turned on my computer, imported the video, and started writing a blog. I know I'm a timid person, but sometimes I want to be brave. The girl in the video was small, pushed to the ground with a bleeding forehead. The person filming spewed vile words, and Owen's face was clearly visible even after 7 years. You could clearly see how he pulled my hair, lifted my school uniform, unhooked my bra, and spat on my back. They laughed, calling me mute and deaf. I detailed the events between Owen and me chronologically. The indulgence of parents, the neglect and inaction of teachers and schools. I believe in karma, that good and evil will be rewarded accordingly. But without Robert, who would have brought justice to Owen, who would have given me justice? I clicked the yellow publish button. Chapter 20. The internet was once again in an uproar, but fortunately, this time it was heading in a positive direction. Owen was a complete scoundrel who accused first, and his words were shattered in the face of the video evidence. With the support of Greenfield High School alumni speaking out for Robert, Owen was nailed to the pillar of shame. Comments under Owen's Weibo were flooded with "How come Robert didn't beat you to death, you beast?" He received not only a lawyer's letter from Robert but also had his father's delinquency exposed, pending police action, making him the year's epitome of scum. Entertainment reporters soon revealed that Owen's defamatory video was purchased by Grace's team to divert attention. Such behavior tore apart her previously innocent heiress image, forcing Grace to apologize. Even her company couldn't protect her. She not only paid penalties but also had to retreat from the industry in disgrace. My life didn't change much because of this. Since graduation, I've been teaching at a school for the hearing impaired, with simple interpersonal relationships. However, netizens followed my Weibo account to my homepage, discovering it was all about promoting the hearing impaired school, leading to substantial donations and supplies. This month, the school received the most social donations ever. One night, Little Bunny called me. She said nothing, just cried for half an hour. Finally, she wiped her tears and shouted with renewed vigor, "It's all over, little Ashley, boldly walk your path of flowers. Little deskmate, boldly walk your path of flowers." Chapter 21. I continued my usual classes with the kids at school, quiet and well-behaved. One afternoon, the classroom was showing Robert's music video. A completely hearing-impaired little one ran over and asked me, signing quietly, "Teacher, is his singing beautiful?" I nodded. The child's face lit up with excitement, her mouth agape in surprise, looking behind me. "Why is he here?" I turned and saw a person leaning against the colorful glass window, watching me. It was like a long time ago when we were 17. Robert tapped the window with his knuckles, his monolid eyes looking at me. The kids all turned to look at him, then at me, making rare playful noises in the classroom. I blushed, feeling awkward. Kids these days are so precocious. Chapter 22. Robert came to promote charity for the hearing-impaired school, planning to shoot his new music video here. The principal assigned me the task of hosting him. But my hearing had deteriorated further, my head often buzzing painfully, making it hard to hear even with hearing aids. I guessed Robert noticed my condition but never mentioned it, patiently repeating himself over and over. I planned to undergo a new treatment after Robert's work at the school was done. But one afternoon, I couldn't hold on any longer. I couldn't hear anything. The world suddenly fell into utter silence. Before entering the operating room, Robert stayed by my side. Only after I spoke out did people realize why Robert said the song title was unique to him. This time, the fans believed it was true. Robert opened a Weibo account and responded to the online rumors. Robert V, yes, I've had a crush on her for 7 years. I found 2 letters mixed with the newspapers at home. One was an invitation to Greenfield High School's anniversary, and the other was an earlier one, a VIP ticket to Robert's concert. This time, I'm not afraid at all, not even if I can't hear in the future. Because I had a June summer, becoming Robert's only listener. And one day, 7 years later, I passed by the streets and alleys filled with She Can Hear. I finally heard it. Robert's love.